You have a job. You get paid every month. You work 5 days a week. And yet somehow you still feel broke. Your salary arrives. Then, almost immediately, it starts disappearing. Rent takes one piece, taxes take another. Energy bills, transport, food, insurance, and by the time everything essential has been paid, the money you thought would give you a better life has become just enough to get you to the next payday. But here is the strange part. This isn't necessarily because young Brits are spending recklessly. It isn't simply about expensive coffees, takeaways, or holidays. Something much bigger has changed. The cost of entering adult life has risen dramatically. Housing is more difficult to afford, essential bills consume a larger share of income, and building savings can feel almost impossible when you're still paying for the basics. So how did a generation with jobs, qualifications, and regular salaries end up feeling permanently broke? And more importantly, is the problem really how young people spend their money, or is it the economy they are trying to survive in? Let's start with the biggest expense of all. Housing. For previous generations, getting a job and eventually buying a home was often seen as a natural part of growing up. Today, that path is much less straightforward. Young workers can spend years saving for a deposit while simultaneously paying rent. And this creates a financial paradox. The more you pay in rent, the harder it can become to save. The longer you take to save, the longer you remain a renter. And while you're renting, someone else may be building wealth from the property you live in. That doesn't mean every homeowner became rich overnight. But property has become one of the biggest dividing lines between generations. And housing is only the beginning. Once you've secured somewhere to live, the monthly bills begin. Council tax, electricity, gas, water, internet, insurance. Then there's the cost of getting to work. For some people, that's a train or bus. For others, it's a car. And a car isn't just fuel. There is insurance, maintenance, repairs, tax, parking, finance payments. Suddenly, simply getting yourself to work can become a major household expense. Then comes food. The problem with rising food prices isn't necessarily that one supermarket trip becomes unaffordable. It's that small increases across hundreds of everyday purchases slowly change the entire household budget. And this is where the feeling of being permanently broke begins. You may not be poor, you may have a reasonable salary, you may even earn more than your parents did at the same age. But if your essential costs have increased faster than your disposable income, your financial freedom can still shrink. Because income isn't the same thing as wealth. What matters is what remains after the essentials have been paid. Imagine receiving your salary at the beginning of the month. For a moment, the number looks impressive. Then, rent disappears, bills disappear, transport disappears, food disappears, debt payments disappear, and suddenly the amount that looked like a salary becomes a much smaller amount you can actually control. That remaining money is supposed to cover everything else: savings, emergencies, entertainment, travel, clothes, family events, and perhaps, eventually, a house deposit. This is why simply telling young people to budget better doesn't tell the whole story. Budgeting is important. But budgeting cannot reduce your rent by half. It cannot suddenly create affordable housing. It cannot control energy prices. And it cannot make a salary stretch indefinitely. There is also a psychological cost. When every month is a calculation, people begin delaying decisions. Buying a home, starting a family, changing careers, taking a holiday. Even spending money on something enjoyable can create guilt. And that changes the way an entire generation thinks about money. The goal is no longer always to become wealthy. Sometimes the goal is simply to avoid falling behind. And that may be the most important part of this story. Young workers are not necessarily asking for luxury. Many simply want what previous generations considered normal: a secure home, a little savings, a comfortable life, the ability to handle an unexpected bill, and perhaps enough money left over to actually enjoy the life they are working for. But when housing, transport, food, energy, and other essentials absorb most of the monthly income, that ordinary goal becomes much harder. So perhaps the real question isn't, why can't young Brits manage their money? Perhaps the better question is, why does earning a normal salary no longer guarantee financial security? Because if the cost of living keeps rising faster than people's ability to build wealth, earning more may not be enough. You can work harder, earn more, spend less, and still feel like you're standing still. And for Britain's youngest workers, that may be the real financial problem. Not that they don't have money, but that too much of their money is already spoken for.